Okay, shalom. Right, this is an incredible lesson. We're going to be talking about some really major issues, some quite sensitive issues actually, because obviously on the pitch you can see the book Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler, Yimach Shemol Wuzikro. And we're going to be looking at some really interesting concepts regarding the struggle of Yaakov in all the way through the night, which is equivalent to exile. What exactly is he struggling against, and how exactly does he prevail? So let's go and have a look. Okay, I'll just bring myself on board. Okay, so the man who wrestled Yaakov. So we've got this verse from Genesis 32:25. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. So we've got some incredible gematria. We're just going to be looking at a few of the gematria in this lesson, but really powerful stuff. Let's go and have a look. And like I say, we do get to the concept of Mein Kampf, the struggle of the other side against Yaakov. I've got a lot to say about this, by the way. Like I say, really sensitive stuff, really hard-hitting things, and really things that we're all going to have an answer for. We're all going to have an answer for these forces that we are all battling against, by the way, or we all represent. Right, so, and Yaakov was left alone. So this is the first part of it, and Yaakov was left alone. It comes to all these numbers. I think we're going to be having a look at the square ordinal. Some phenomenal numbers in here. I haven't got time to go over them, but anybody who watched the last lesson, specifically the last lesson that I did on the boiling pot of excrement, came across this number 327, and it's a very powerful number. I'm not going to go through that, but the fact that it's related to this is extremely significant, because that number there represents a very messianic concepts. Wonderful teaching, by the way. Let's go and have a look at some of these then. So straight away we've got this. What is it that we are fighting? Okay, we've got the concept of the Yetzer Hara and the concept of the Yetzer Hatov. So a man has got two inclinations. That's why in the Torah, Lev is written in the plural, indicating we have two hearts, two inclinations. We've got the evil inclination that needs rectifying, and we've got the Yetzer Hatov. That's the power to rectify our evil inclination for good. If we add the regular and the ordinal of evil inclination to the regular and ordinal of the good inclination, it comes to 1056, exactly the same as this. Okay? Exactly the same as this. So even though Yaakov was left alone, even Yaakov himself to a certain degree has got to battle against his own evil inclination. And this is the real struggle in life, by the way, because we've got an evil inclination that represents our fantasy and fiction, and sometimes that dominates over our good inclination. Our inclination to do evil, which is synonymous with boosting our ego and usually satisfying selfish desires and lusts and greeds, dominates over the good. We cannot have that situation. That is what is called exile. Our soul is exiled into that reality. We've got to allow for the inner light, the good, to dominate over the outer evil. Okay, I was actually just reading about this morning. In the Talmud, I think it's in Yoma 69, I do believe. I might be wrong with that, but I'm pretty sure it's in Yoma 69. It talks about the rabbis, the sages, they just overpowered idol worship, this phenomena. We used to be much more enticed towards idol worship because of something that the sages previously did. This is according to Talmud. They managed to bind this desire and lust for idol worship. I'd say that it's now raging more prevalent than ever, but in terms of Avodah Zarah as defined in the Talmud, they managed to bind the spirit and so the children of Israel didn't feel inclined towards idol worship. I mean, in the past they've even offered the children to Molech, so you can tell the power of the power of the desire for idol worship must have been very, very strong. So the sages have been successful in eliminating the lust for idol worship. So they had to go doing the evil inclination. The evil inclination, they're bound for 3 days, and in those 3 days no eggs were laid in the entire of Eretz Yisrael. There was nobody wanting to go out to work. There was nothing getting done, in the mundane reality. So they realised if they was to bind the evil inclination, it would destroy the whole world. So instead they gouged its eyes out. And we can see that there is like coded messages there with the whole concept of Yeshua, because Yeshua's had to descend into the evil inclination, into death itself, into the belly of the whale itself, in order to overpower it from within. And what did they do to him? They took off the letter ayin of his name. Okay. And then we've got this up here, good inclination, the ordinal of which is 70. Which is exact gematria of the letter ayin, and it's also the number of years Adam give to David, which is the life of the Mashiach, 70 years. So there's all kinds of things that we can learn from that. But going back to this evil inclination, there's nothing that we can do to eradicate it, because without it we wouldn't do anything. We wouldn't procreate, we wouldn't, want to go to work, we wouldn't want to, raise up families in a house. We wouldn't have any inclination for these things if there was no evil inclination. What we've got to do is make sure that inclination doesn't dominate over our holy good inclination. Okay, and also the evil inclination is fantasy fiction. And don't forget, our knowledge has fallen from our place in the skull called Golgotha down into our flesh, our basar. So there's all kinds of connections to this. Yaakov is to subdue the inclination with the truth. That's the power that has got to be given to the good inclination in order to subdue the evil inclination, which is subject to fantasy fiction and lies, sheker, falsehood. So we've got to do something. What is the power that we've got that we give to the good inclination that represents Yaakov to overpower the evil inclination that represents Esav? Not forgetting that the sages say that the one that Yaakov was wrestling with was the guardian angel of Esav. That's why I've put the gods of Edom, because Esav is Edom, and we are in Edomite exile. We are in a Greco-Roman exile, and it's the gods of the Greco-Romans that we've got to overpower. But these can come in many forms. It can be our own fantasy and fiction that can be the hardest thing to subdue, to even recognise it for what it is. It can trick us and manipulate us, and it really can be very, very difficult to discern when the evil inclination is in a state of domination, even within us. So this is all different levels of trying to understand this. However, we can't eradicate the evil inclination. We've got to subdue it from Esav to Shalom. I talk about this a lot. The evil inclination is Esav, the good inclination Yaakov. Evil inclination is 376, so is Shalom. Where do we get our Shalom from? From subduing our evil inclination. Okay? With the truth. What truth? What truth does Yaakov need? Od Yosef Chai. And where do we get this truth from? Well, you see, the truth regarding Mashiach ben Yosef, we have to attach to that truth in all its incredible details, eradicating the foreskin of Esav from off it, all the fantasy and all the fiction and all the idol worship and all the false gods, the consequence of this light descending into Edom, the Edomite exile. So we've got to circumcise the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef from the foreskin of Esav into which it's descended. I talked about this in last lesson. How can we do that? We've got to first have the power of the truth. We've got to know what's hidden in that whole exile. and seek to reveal it, to expose the truth. The hidden way, Yod He Wawi, through the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef, has been orchestrating the entire of creation for an ultimate good, where the good inclination and the evil inclination can be as one, the male and the female as one, body and soul as one, Israel and the nations as one, in order to receive that Yod He Wawi desires for us to receive. Okay, the vessels and the light as one. It's a rectification that's taken 6,000 years, and at the end of it we will be Tov Me'od, very good. The sages say, where do we get the Tov Me'od from? The Tov Me'od comes from Genesis. When man is finally created on the 6th day, it's called Tov Me'od. The rabbis say the Tov aspect is a good inclination, the Me'od, the very, is the evil inclination. Why is it so important for God to refine the evil inclination? Because the evil inclination is our will to receive. We just want things for ourselves. Okay? Yaakov wants to give. Okay, he's altruistic. He's like Yod He Wawi. He represents Yod He Wawi. So Yod He Wawi desires to give. He needs a vessel to be able to receive. And Esav is the vessel we've got to transform the will to receive into the will to receive for the sake of the Holy One, blessed be He, for the sake of Yod He Wawi, that wants to give, that wants to bestow upon us a revelation of Himself. But He can't bestow a revelation of Himself upon us if our desire for Him is for selfish, egotistical lusts and desires. Our motivation has got to be pure. We have got to receive with the knowledge that He desires to bestow more than we desire to receive. So for Him to be able to give us that He wants us to have. And this is where our evil inclination ultimately gets transformed. Our will to receive from the selfish, egotistical inclination that leads to death, disease and destruction, to a rectified inclination, evil inclination, that receives the very revelation that Yod He Wawi desires to bestow upon us for the sake of His name to be revealed. Okay, so our evil inclination has got a very great purpose. Without it, we will never have what Yod He Wawi desires to give. So it's Yaakov's job to wrestle against this force until this force actually is the source of blessing. Okay, ultimately He blesses him with the name of Yisrael, he who has struggled against men and gods and prevailed. So what else have we got regarding this then? Okay, so this is very fascinating, because a lot of our struggles come from the fantasy and fiction that has been instilled in us, and a lot of this comes from the religions and the false teachings of those religions, predominantly the leaven of the Pharisees. This is what it's called in terms of the New Testament. As you can see, however, oh, by the way, this is the 386th prime. 386 is Yeshua, the one who's had his eyes gouged out. He shouldn't have had his eyes gouged out. He is not Asaph. He is the force hidden within there, the Hebraic force hidden within there that we've simply got to reveal. 2659. So these are all the ways in which Yaakov was left alone can be filled. So that means the Vav filled 3 different ways, and there's no haze in there, is there? So the 2 Vavs filled 3 different ways. A Vav and an Aleph Vav. Sorry, a Vav Vav, Vav Aleph Vav, and a Vav Yud Vav. We get 3 different readings for the 4 different levels, because in 2 of the levels the Vav is filled with an Aleph. So these are the fillings out of Asira, Yetzira, Yetzira, Beriah, and Atziluth. They come to 10,636, which is 4 times 2,659. The main battle that Yaakov has is against the false teachings, the leaven of the Pharisees, and that includes the influence that the Pharisees have had even on the New Testament. If you go and read about, I've briefly touched upon this in previous lessons, the whole concept of the fast of the 9th of Tevet. This will expose how the Pharisees managed to corrupt the New Testament teachings. The Pharisees have corrupted the teachings within the Talmud. It's not the Torah of Moshe. Vilna Gaon tells us this. He says the Aggadic tales, which are up to a third of the entire Talmud, is the Torah of Moshe in exile. So you see what happens when we eat the leaven of the Pharisees? It arouses our ego. It arouses and empowers our ego. The very leaven of the Pharisees is the thing that we are battling against most. The false teachings within all the religions, and then that's filtered down to Islam. These create a false impression of God. They reveal yet conceal. And there's a big problem in that. You see, the part that reveals produces good. You see, the part that conceals produces a great amount of evil, a great amount of ego, and it produces a false God. Okay? And this false God is really what we need to battle against. It's not Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. It creates something other in our minds. It fuels our fantasy and fiction. It fuels lies. It fuels division and separation. It fuels hatred and anger. It is not Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. So the main battle is against false teachings. Of all the religions have false teachings. You need to do research into this. You need to go and have a look at the origins of the New Testament. You need to look at really close details regarding even the Torah, the whole Masoretic text, the whole differences between that and the Septuagint, and the fact that there was another Torah that we have not now got that preceded the Masoretic text, for example. There's too much evidence to suggest otherwise. There's all kinds of different ways of understanding this, and knowing for a fact that the Torah that we have has been influenced and manipulated by the hands of man. It's not just the hands of God involved in the Torah. The New Testament's the same, the Quran is the same. You can check it out. I think there's even 37 valid translations of the Quran that are all different. The hands of man is involved. The leaven of the Pharisees is involved in all these teachings, and this puffs us up. This makes us arrogant. This gives us the wrong kind of inclination. It empowers the evil inclination within us. It leads to death, destruction and disease. We need to eradicate it. Okay? And that's it filled out. For the testimony of Yeshua, not with an ayin missing, not Yeshu, Yeshua is the spirit of prophecy. There's a profundity in this. Who is Yeshua? Yeshua is Yosef. Yeshua is the power that we need to give over to Yetzer Hatov. How can we give him over when he's covered up in the foreskin of Esav? How can we say, Yosef is still alive when he's encrusted in the death of Esav and Edom? We've got to go through that whole process of circumcising the whole concept of Yeshua, taking him back to his Hebrew roots, divesting him also of the leaven of the Pharisees, all the false teachings regarding him that have corrupted humanity, and all those people that have read the books of the New Testament and such like that, and including the Jewish people whose imaginations have been fueled against Yeshua, and all the hatred caused there. The testimony of Yeshua, the true testimony, ki eduth Yeshua, hu ruach anavua, It's a flow of prophecy from above. What is Yeshua? We talked about this in the last lesson. Yeshua represents Yesod as Yosef represents Yesod. This is the channel between heaven and earth that must be in a state fully opened. It's symbolised by a fully alive male anatomy, as opposed to a male anatomy in a state of death. Okay? Use your imagination for good in that matter. But is the flow between heaven and earth, is the connection between Tifereth, which is represented by Yaakov, and Malkuth, which is represented by Mashiach ben Dawid, is the flow of prophecies, the flow of abundance, is the flow of that name from above to below. Is the channel through which Yod-He Waw-He desires to reveal himself to us below on earth. For him to impregnate physical reality with the presence of himself through this channel of Yesod. But that cannot be accomplished whilst Yesod is clothed up in the garments of Esav. So when we say the testimony of Yeshua is a spirit of prophecy, that's what we're talking about. He's the channel through which we receive from above to below that Yod-He Waw-He desires to bestow on us. As we can see, 2 times this, the regular and the square ordinal of this add together, and a 2 times 1917, which is the square ordinal of, and Yaakov was left alone. So massive connection there. Yaakov, whom I have chosen. The Mispar Gadol, that means taking into account the Chaf Sofit, is 1803 plus 174. It comes to 1977. Yaakov has been chosen. Okay, Yaakov has been chosen over Esav. Chosen to be the one who reveals the name of Yod-He Waw-He and attains the name of Yisrael. Okay? And that's connected to all our souls. It's not our body and the will of our body that will ultimately dominate and prevail. It is the will of our soul that will dominate and prevail eventually in this reality that we're facing, that fuels mostly our imaginations, by the way, and it's really difficult to discern. It's nearly impossible at times. Right, so let's go and have a look at this, because this to me is incredible. We've got this wicked representation of the epitome of the evil of Esav, the ultimate epitome of what he is capable of doing to Yaakov, given total and utter free rein. Where does he get his power from? Where does he get his power from? He gets his power from the bones of Yosef, just as Egypt got their power from the bones of Yosef. You see, all the time while Yosef, Yeshua, is not fully revealed to Yaakov, and the truth of Yosef Chai is not fully told to Yaakov, Esav is in thorough, total dominion. And this is the epitome of that. The epitome of it. You see, all their teachings, the epitome of evil that they bad teachings can produce. And I'm talking about the evil teachings of Israel, of Judaism, because they contributed to Kampf. The stories about boiling excrement, the Torah of Moshe in the Talmudic Addic tales, they contribute and power this false teaching, this false evil teaching. Why? Because they are part of the foreskin of Yesod, Yosef, Yeshua. Vilna Gaon says got to remove this, like the teaching that I did the other day to reveal what the meaning of that boiling excrement was. the previous teachings to this, because if we don't bring out the Torah of Moshe, if we don't reveal the testimony of Mashiach ben Yosef, we are going to manifest these monsters instead. The gods that we fight are these gods that we have created through these false teachings that give us a false impression who God is, that give us a false impression of who the rest of humanity is. So do you know who we're fighting? We end up fighting ourselves. We end up destroying ourselves instead of fighting against these false gods. Yaakov knows the truth. Our evil inclination is addicted to these teachings, these leaven of the Pharisees that inspires and inflames our ego, makes us feel more supreme and elite like Haman. You see, the God that we then create comes back to bite us. We have to face that. What we think in our mind manifests in physical reality. You see what happened in the Holocaust? That is the degree to which we can get it wrong. That is the power that this evil falsehood can create, can inflame, can empower. Then we've got to wrestle with that, what we have created with our own imaginations through believing lies, predominantly lies about Yosef. So let's go and have a look at the numbers. Mein Kampf means my struggle. This is talking about Adolf Hitler. Yimach Shemo Wizikro. The same letters, the same word here, my struggle, is exactly the same root word as of. And a man wrestled with him. It was a struggle between two opposing forces, between truth, Yaakov, and lie, Esau. Fantasy fiction. It's hot today. Okay, so there's a massive connection here. You see, this struggle, this false god, this delusion, this idol needs wrestling down, and it's a ferocious fight, by the way. But 571, Mein Kampf comes to 488, 83 ordinarily, which is Hanukkah, by the way. And the real struggle started around Hanukkah, didn't it? It was when Zeus was, sorry, there's a spider there. Zeus was put into the holy temple. And Zeus, in a lot of ways, is connected to the concept of Yeshua, as is Jupiter and things like that. There's a big connection there. I talked about that in the last lesson. You know, God dressed Yosef in Pharaoh's clothes in order to go into Egyptian exile. God dressed up Yosef in the gods of Rome, in Zeus. So there is a connection there, because obviously it was the Maccabean rebellion against this. I forgot that right. I think that's something else, isn't it? It was the Greeks that set up. But anyway, at some point Zeus was in the temple. Okay, there was a statue of Zeus. It's gone from my mind now. I'm not 100% sure, but pretty sure something connected to that is to do with Hanukkah. Okay, I'll just read you something so I know that I'm not going totally crazy on that one. Okay, so this is just a little bit, I was getting myself a little bit muddled up there. It's supposed to be then Antiochus sought to force Hellenistic philosophy. This is a major problem as well. A major problem is the influence of Greek philosophy within all the religions, and religion upon all the subjects in his empire. Crowning the offences he delivered to the Jews, Antiochus had a statue of Zeus. This is a Greek god. The Roman equivalent is Jupiter. Okay, so king of the Greek gods. The Romans just basically took on the Greek gods and renamed them. So Zeus and Jupiter are the same thing, which is the prime gods that Yeshua is dressed up in. Set up in the temple at Jerusalem, Jews who would not bow to it were killed. So this is a big problem. Let's have a look at the struggle. So you've got here my struggle, Hitler's struggle, Yimach Shemo Wizikro. That's the true one that we should be cursing, that his name be erased, not Yeshua. So it comes to 83, 571. This is incredible as well. Look at this. 2855. This is Hanukkah. This is Hanukkah. It's talking about the 8th day of Hanukkah. Zot Hanukkah. Okay, it comes to 571. So we can see 571 times 5 is the entire of this verse. This is how this is also connected up to the actual verse. The regular and ordinal come to 2,855. It's all connected. It's all incredible. So Zot Hanukkah. The 597 is the exact same as Tahom, regular and ordinal. They two add together come to 497, which Tahom, according to the sages, represents Edomite exile. So you've got Tohu, Bohu, and this one, Tahom. Yishmael. So there's the two heads of the clipper. There's the Edomite head, which is Rome, which is Christianity. There's the Yishmaelite head, which is Islam and Yishmaelite. Okay, so obviously God has got a plan to bring all the nations to a place of shalom, and this is like an intermediary process. But in the meantime, until the truth regarding Yeshua has been fully revealed, we've got two Edomite, so we've got two heads of the clipper that egos are fueled against Yaakov. So these are the other gods that he has to wrestle, because the teachings within Christianity, the Edomite Christianity, and the teachings within Yishmael, and both of these two, the 70 nations, and Ramchal says 35 are Edomite, 35 Yishmaelite, and then there's got Yaakov, which represents Yisrael. Okay, he's got to overpower these forces, but God has got a plan, to subdue Esav to the side of holy, to create shalom, and these religions are part way towards that. But what do when there's the false teachings also that fuel up the ego still? Creates a problem, that creates a false god. Jacob has to then wrestle. It leads to death. Tahom, Edomite exile, is equivalent of death itself. Esav represents death. Yosef, whilst is encrusted in Esav, represents death. It's the channel of Yesod that is in a state of death. It's not fully erect. It's not fully functioning. It's not fully revealed. It cannot allow that flow from heaven to earth to occur as Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh desires, because the refinement has not yet gone on. It's all connected. And then also Hanukkah. Hanukkah can be spelt this way, Zot Hanukkah with a Vav, but more often it can be spelt without a Vav, Hanukkah, and it comes to 83 when it does. Exactly the same as Kampf. And as we can see, this is the struggle through the night. Hanukkah always occurs at the night. This is where the victory is won. Okay, like it says here, on the breaking of the dawn, we're wrestling with all these false gods that presume to be able to go and set up camp in the holy temple itself. Who is the holy temple? That's us. You see the temple of Zeus, the statue of Zeus. If you don't bow to it, you're going to be killed. This is the entire mentality of Esav. We're fired up and fueled up with these false teachings, these Pharisees, these leaven of the Pharisees. And like I say, they had Jewish origins. The New Testament and the Ishmaelite teachings can be traced back to influence, shall we say, that came via the Pharisees and their leaven. And that's even known within Judaism. You can, like I say, you only need to go research the whole concept of the fast of the 9th of Tevet. These teachings were infiltrated infiltrated with leaven. We need to get back to the original true teachings that have not got any of this leaven of the Pharisees, which is equivalent to the power of Satan to arouse our ego, that brings us to a place of death. And if you don't bow down to this God we worship, that's equivalent to Zeus, you die. If you don't bow down to it, you're killed. This is exactly the same mentality. This has been the mentality within Christianity. This has been the mentality within Esau. We've powered them up. Hidden in that, God is doing a very, very, very big work. You see, the power of Esau will be eradicated, because the power of Yaakov, with the knowledge of the truth, will eventually overcome him. And eventually that God, that false God, and all the people that are attached to that false God, they will bless Yaakov within him, Yisrael, because they will know that he struggled against their delusion and won and freed them and liberated them from that delusion. You know, that's refined them from the delusion itself. You know, for them to then serve the purpose that God intended for them to serve. It's only after Yaakov's wrestled with the delusion that these false religions create. And I'm not talking about rabbinical Judaism. In fact, they're on a par. The rabbinical Judaism is got as much leaven of the Pharisees in it as anything. They have created a false god that Yaakov himself has got to wrestle against. Because all these things that inflare your ego, that's not Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh that's getting worshipped in that religion. That's a half-truth, half-lie God. That's equivalent to the concept of Metatron. That's equivalent to the concept of the little Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. It's not Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh himself, because Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh can't be revealed except through the truth. And that includes the truth regarding Yeshua. Where is the truth regarding Yeshua found within rabbinical Judaism? The leaven of the Pharisees has concealed that completely. You see the false god that we get instead? You see the Yesod fully encrusted in the foreskin of Esau? Nowhere is that more true than in the teachings to be found within rabbinical Judaism. It's a false god that's created. Do you know what the false god that we create in our minds then looks like? It looks a whole lot like this. Kampf. You're on the wrong side of the struggle. And you see, you're going to confront yourself at some point. God forbid. God forbid you have to confront the very God you created in your own mind because of false, evil, fantasy fiction fueled teachings, leaven of the Pharisees. Our minds are very powerful. What we have on the inside, we see projection on and manifestation on the outside. It's all right pointing fingers thinking it's somebody else. It's yourself you're looking at. It's your own false God you're looking at. We are looking at. We've got to struggle against the very things our imagination creates to fight with us. We've got to wrestle these lies down with the truth about Yeshua, the truth about Moshiach ben Yosef. The only way we can get that is from the Torah, the true Torah of Moshe, and the testimony of Yeshua. Okay, so we've already gone through these, haven't we? This is an absolute critical key. I spoke about it in the last lesson. In everything, from everything, everything. This is Yesod, by the way, who's called everything. But you see these three here, in everything, from everything, and everything. This is part of the daily prayer service. And this is talking about the forefathers. Bekol, Mekol, kol, filled out. In order to win this fight against the gods that we have actually created in our own minds through the false teaching, the leaven of the Pharisees, that, the leaven of the Pharisees that came into play at the beginning of the Edomite exile, that have infiltrated all the major Abrahamic religions. In everything, I'm pretty sure that relates to Abraham. Makol relates to Yitzhak, and Kol relates to Yaakov. But Kol itself, everything is to do with Yesod Yosef. So there's all those four aspects there. Tifereth, Chesed, Gevurah, Yesod. We've got to connect to the concept of the three forefathers. Without that 3-ply card, we will never have the strength to sustain us in this fight. We, in every way possible that we need to connect to the concept of the forefathers, we need to connect to them. One of the ways that I think I had an inspiration about this. I have a great connection, if you like, to Yaakov. Why? Because, for all the reasons why we all have a massive, wonderful connection to Yaakov. But I actually suffered my Gid Hanasheh, the sciatic nerve, being crushed whilst I was pregnant, my 4th child, and it literally paralysed my leg. It was I never ever, please God, let me never experience pain like that again. So when I read in the Torah about Yaakov hobbling on his, on his stick or whatever, and I'm thinking, the children of Israel don't eat this nerve because of, Yaakov and the pain it would have caused him. When you've experienced that pain yourself, it's like hot molten lava. It's the most ferocious pain. It's nearly the sort of stuff could knock you out unconscious. You feel a connection why that hind leg was never eaten, because it really must have moved God. That whole experience, and in that came as a result of this struggle. It's not an easy struggle. It's not an easy struggle to endure that level of pain and suffering, bearing in mind now what that represents. What it represents. The struggle against this force. Think about Hitler, it's unbearable levels. Think about like the Crusades and, Spanish Inquisition, the arrogance of it all, the hate. This is not a small thing. And Yaakov suffering that was representing this struggle against this force that is so destructive. It's so wicked, and it thinks it's so right and justified because it's fueled up with teachings that are false, that have animated their imagination to the degree that it's powered them up to do the evil that this has done. So one of the things that I feel you can connect to Yaakov is through not eating the hind legs. That's to make sure that that nerve has been thoroughly removed, or don't bother even eating. Most Jews don't even eat the hind part of a kosher animal for that reason, because it's very difficult to remove that nerve completely. In the physical, when we are taking into account what that represents, and we've got to connect to this and be able to meditate when we refuse to eat that, what that really means to us. We are refusing to bow down or submit to any of these forces of exile. We are like Yaakov, fighting and wrestling against this incredible, overwhelming darkness. However much this Darkness presents itself as reality. It is not the truth. However much it argues, however much it fights, our fight is harder because we represent the truth. And at some point the truth will prevail over this evil and over this lie. Life will prevail over death. Yisrael over the nations. Od Yosef Chai, Titen Emeth li Yaakov. Give truth to Yaakov. It's part of the holy name. And then we've got this white, Lelavon. So this is taken from the verses in Torah regarding leprosy. So when the leprosy is turned white, he is clean. Who is clean? The one sat in the gates of Rome, bandages in his wounds, like a leper. Yeshua. When we recognise that he has suffered for us, he is struggling within on our behalf, and instead of seeing him as a leper, we will be able to declare he's clean. Okay? So 488, my struggle, it's equal opposite to this. It's the truth. There's so many truths regarding the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, and they're all hidden in the verses of leprosy. I've talked about this a lot. And another thing that you to remember from these verses, be kind. Be kind. When we're not kind, we emulating these forces here. It's the wrong struggle. It's the wrong struggle. Struggle to be kind. Struggle to show loving kindness, chesed. Okay? Not cruelty and evil. Run from it. You're fighting on the wrong side of the fence. Right, Patach. So this is a connection to the forefathers. This is Abraham who sat at the Patach, the opening of his tent. And there's all kinds of mystical teachings involved with that. It's really very, very beautiful. But Patach, opening. We've got to be there willing to serve, just as Abraham was willing to serve. Again, chesed, kindness, whiteness. It's associated with white, it's associated with silver. Is chesed. It helps to overcome this. You see, this is the opposite. This is the opposite of chesed. This is the opposite of kindness. This is darkness and blackness and death and redness. We've got to be kind. See that kindness? It connects us to Abraham. Be truthful. It connects us to Yaakov. Be disciplined. It connects us to Yitzchak. And also laugh. It's difficult to laugh when you're facing levels of intensity and evil to this degree. But do you know what? Unless you have some sort of sense of humour, you are going to crack under the pressure of facing this reality. Because that laughter at some point keeps us human. It cuts through layers and layers of fear at times. It just connects us to our inner humanity. You see this force here? It's going to deny you of your humanity. Because this is the trouble that the people in the Holocaust faced. They was denied their humanity. They was not considered as humans. And this is the God that we create. This is the God we create through our false teachings. Do you know why? Because he's nothing more than a Nazi commandor. When we, through false teachings, inflame our ego against others who we consider less than human, the God that we then worship is nothing more than a Nazi commandor. I think that's how you pronounce it, not Nazi commander. Because the Nazi commander, they could go and issue warrants to kill thousands of people, perform horrific acts of cruelty, and then go home and pat their dog and be nice to their children and kiss their wives and sit down and have Sunday lunch. If your God resembles this in any way, like, oh, look at we're so favoured and we're so chosen, and look at they rats over there, well, God has got a plan to punish you. This is not God. God's plan is for all humanity. And if we start thinking in terms of them and us, we're like Haman. We're like Haman. Yimach Shemo Zikro. We know different. We're cruel. What's the point in being nice to our own children and then doing that to all the Jews? What's the point in being nice to all our little Jewish children and then teaching they same children that, you see, the punishment our God does on the nations is somehow acceptable? Because they're wicked and they deserve it, because they're not us and they're not special. You see the God you create with lies and fantasy and ego? That God comes back to bite hard. And if you haven't got the power in your foot to crush it, because you haven't got the truth, you're going to be suffering a great deal. And this God comes and it destroys us all, whether it destroys us from out with or within. You see, the false teachings have an impact. We've got to eradicate that leaven. We've got to start to recognise the God that we have created through the teachings that we teach. Is becoming manifest in this world, and we don't like it. How is it manifest now? You see, these scientists that was given indemnity after Nazi scientists, the same scientists doing experiments on Jewish children in camps, then became given immunity in America through Operation Paperclip. Look it up. Those same people then went on to have absolutely top jobs within NASA, within the CIA. You can go look at the actual Nazis who took up in places like the UN. And then, you know, you've got all these scientific bodies that were basically taken over by Nazis. Then you've got them with all these programs for vaccination and everything else, determining what is healthy for us. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. And you see, because we've become so blind, and this has been going on in such a secret, hidden way, we don't even recognise it for what it is anymore. We've got to start to open our eyes up and know, where did these Nazis go to? Where did they go to? Where is their influence now? It's in the sciences. They went into the sciences. They were the scientists, the leading scientists that was adopted into America, and now they infiltrated all the major organisations, all the major government organisations, all the major political powers, all the secret agencies, CIA, FBI, completely and utterly inundated with former Nazis. And they're now making decisions for your life and your children's life and telling you what is healthy. I wouldn't trust these people at all. They are too powerful for their own good. Yaakov has got to be able to discern truth from lie. Because you see, these people are going to, this is what they represent, death. Be kind. This is opposite to kind. And then we've got this, behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. It goes on, it says, behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have chosen you for the crucible of poverty. Which is far more merciful than facing this, isn't it? Far more merciful. I'd rather be poor than have to suffer anything like what the Jewish people had to suffer in the Holocaust. And I'm being perfectly honest. You know, I sometimes think about how I've suffered in my life, and I honestly have not even got words to describe it. But compared to what the Jewish people suffered in the Holocaust at the hands of these forces, it's incomparable. You know, so I'll take my poverty and be thankful of it. And knee, for example, as well. This can be changed around for ain, I. Once we see the truth, going back to that whole concept of the Yetzer Hara with eyes gouged out, Yeshua with the letter ain removed from the name, we can transform that ani into Ain, Ayin, sorry, as in an eye. We can become Bat Ayin, daughters of the eye, the apple of the eye. Okay? To be refined that way is far better than to be refined like silver, to be refined against these forces. No, thank you. And I pray that none of us ever have to face that again. And over the eyeball of the adder, this also comes to, so this one came to 186, by the way, it's the square ordinal of Yod He Waw. It's the square ordinal of Adam. It's also the names of I think it's Uzzah and Azael, the scapegoats, and it's Yaakov and Yehuda. It's Yosef and Yehuda, 156 plus 30. So this is what we've got to unite the two sticks together. The true house of Yehuda, not from within Erev Rav Judaism or Rabbinical Judaism, the true house of Yehuda, the true Jews that are merciful and kind and loving, who represent the name of Yod He Waw, who are not just puffed up, arrogant Erev Rav Jews that cause more problems than enough, and not just these fake Edomite Christians. We're talking about the true house of Yosef, the kind, merciful house of Yosef. Bring them together. 186. They are the name of Yod He Waw. They are the Adam, the true Adam that can fight against this. They are Yisrael. Okay, so they need to be united together. It's essential in order to complete the work that needs to be done. So 1245, absolutely opposite this. Okay, and over the eyeball of the adder, this I've just put in because I did a whole teaching on this quite a long time ago, well over a year ago I think now, but basically the eyeball of the adder this is our perspective, serpent-like perspective, Esav-like perspective. It's where we're crawling around on our bellies trying to look at reality. We're getting a very distorted view. Okay, we need to raise ourselves up. This is the falsehood that brings us down to a low place. We need the truth. We need to raise up like men. We are not serpents. We shouldn't be looking at reality through our little slitty, snaky eyes, because we've paid too much attention to the Yetzer Hara. We've paid too much attention to falsehood, and we're the equivalent of a snake crawling around on our bellies. We are not a man. When we allow ourselves to be subject to these forces, these evil forces, these Nazi commando versions of God, through the teachings that satisfy our egos and help create a version of God in our minds that's equivalent to that. We've got to root out that. We've got to root out that leaven. And peace without end upon the throne of David. So that's just to connect to this. 1059 connects you to all these. I know it's not a direct connect, it's an indirect connect, but it's still there. 1059, 3 times 353, which is Yeshu. This is the problem, isn't it? Yeshua without the eye, so that we end up looking through the slitty snake eye version of reality. We need our eyes. We need to see. We're in a state of poverty until we see. But you see this poverty? It's refining us in a way. We've got to overcome that poverty. Okay? And transform it into an eye. Bat Ayin. And this is one woman that helps us to accomplish that. And I think we've all got potential to have a spark of her within us. I certainly have a spark of the Sarach Bat Asher. I've talked about this on previous occasions, without question. The name of Asher's daughter was Sarach. Comes to 1757 plus 155. She was the one that found the bones of Yosef. Baruch Hashem. 1912 is 4 times 488. And then this is incredible. This is incredible. I'm going to try and go through this quite quickly. So, and a man wrestled with him. So this is the next part, isn't it? We've looked at the first part of the verse, and Yaakov was alone, and a man wrestled with him till the break of dawn. So we've got, and a man wrestled with him, 566 plus 105, ordinal come to 651. That links us up to here. And on that day will I cause the horn of the house of Israel to blossom out, and I will give you free speech. Okay, free speech, and they shall know that I am the Lord. That is the power to advocate. We've got to advocate. We can't keep pointing and accusing. We can't keep seeing the evil in another. We've got to advocate for all of humanity. We've got to open our mouths. This is Michael, is the advocate. Baal Shem Tov said he should be advocating for the nations. We should either get rid of him, or he should be advocating for the nations also. Okay, remember Metatron is half Satan, half Michael, and this is usually the form of God that we adopt in exile, isn't it? When he's been good to us, we're in favour. We've got the Michael aspect of Metatron, but you know, if we're not doing as we're exactly told, we get Satan, the satanic version of Metatron, the side of Metatron that is represented by Satan. This is not who we should have over us. We should yearn to have Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh over us. But like I say, unless we wrestle our concept of God down, our exilic, constricted view of God, we need to bring that down and wrestle it down. Whilst we're in exile, that's what we've got. We've got a Metatronic version of God. We've got half good, half bad. We've got the carrot and the stick. You've got the head and the tail. You know, you've got some people within that religion, all roses round the cottage door, and all they can do is focus on the carrot. They're never going to get by the way, as long as they are subject to that force. It's not really Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. And then there's got the other side where you're just getting whipped continuously from the back. You know, you're feeling the whip, but you're never getting the reward of the carrot. This is the God of exile. This is God's test to us. This is what we have to fight, not subjugate ourselves to it. We've got to recognise this isn't God. This isn't God. Why are we putting up with this little version of God, this exiled version of God? We need to expand our consciousness to recognise this can't be God. It can't be God who's kind to us, that goes around killing and murdering and causing horrific amounts of suffering to people that are not us. Is that a God worth worshipping then? Because you see what's going to happen at one point. You're going to find yourself in that place of unfavour. You're going to find yourself in a place where mercy's not extended to you. Then what? What's your complaint? Then nobody's going to fight for you because you didn't fight for anybody else. It's not Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh changes not. It's an exilic version of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. And until we wrestle it down, we're in trouble. But Michael is supposed to advocate. Satan is the accuser. You see all these people, you go to a church, they're accusing people, accusing the Muslims, they're this, they're idol worshippers, it's Satan, it's whatever. You go to the synagogue. Honestly, I went for 7 years. The number of accusations, the anti-Goyish sentiment in the synagogue is unbelievable. You just go along with it. You can't help it. You believe in it. You know, you do believe in it because suddenly you're chosen. You're all right. You're in the Nazi commando's house. See them people burning outside? Well, they probably brought it on themselves, didn't they? What does it matter to you? He's coming home and patting the dog. He's sitting down and having Sunday lunch. That's not God. That's the figment of our imagination. That is us with the leaven of the Pharisees pumped into our bellies, fueling our ego, not making much sense. We need to advocate for all humanity, because God's plan is for all humanity. Okay, and it's Yisrael's job to do that in a large part. You see, when we're accusing, whose children are we? We're the accuser's children. That's who we are. We start pointing fingers. We start thinking people are worthy of death just because they are of the nations, or just because they're Jewish. What demented, deranged philosophy are we believing with that? Got to wrestle that, haven't we? You've got to know for sure that is not God. That is not God. That's a Nazi commander, whatever you call them. It's no different. That cannot be God. It is not God. It's the God of Esau. It's the Edom. It's the God that we get when we in the depth of Edomite exile, and all our flesh is pumped up in the wrong way, and we're not humble enough to recognise the lies in that. Instead, we're allowing them to feed us and fuel us and ignite our imaginations against ourselves. Because you see, the God that we create comes back to bite. We empower it against ourselves. So this petachon peh, it's related to that word petach, open our mouths and advocate for humanity. Michael, we've got to take on that role. We've got to start advocating for humanity. You know, speaking the truth. God has got a good plan for all. All fell in Adam, all will be raised in the last Adam. All fell in this man, and all be raised in the last man. And fell down to the level of a serpent. We will be raised up to the level of Mashiach. We fell a long way, we'll be raised up a long way. And think about the doctors as well, in the Nazi doctors. How far had they fallen to be able to do what they had done? And then some of they went on to be part of the Operation Paperclip, to find prestigious offices within America because they had some information that was sought after, like, you know, what happens when you infect people with viruses. It's wicked. Okay, so let's go and have a look at this. I'll have to bring it all up to show you where the connect is first, and then I'll backtrack. So this is the Torah. This is the power against this man. The true Torah, not the Torah. The true Torah is the tree of life. Not the Torah that is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that is going to fuel up a concept of a false God. The tree of life, divested of all ego, divested of its foreskin, divested of its Edomite influence, divested of the Agadic tales. So Torah, this way, it comes to these 611 plus 53. 53 is Yeshua, by the way, and Yaakov with the Vav, and Yaakov's got the Vav in it. And then that's Torah filled. If we add these two up, the first filling of Torah and how Torah is written normally, 664 plus it written like this, and also advocate is there, look, 101 is the same as Michael. This verse is all about Michael, to open our mouths and advocate for good so that we can win this fight. If we add those two together here, come to 1073, which is the Mispah Gadol, regular and ordinal of Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. It's not the Torah that we normally call Torah, that includes all these Agadic tales in their exiled state. You've got to divest of the foreskin of Esau and reveal the truth, the concept, the secret hidden meaning of the Torah, which is the Torah, the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, and that's what the Vilna Gaon said. That's the tree of life. If we've got this filling out of Torah, the second filling out of Torah, so if we add up all the regulars for the Torah, the first filling out of the Torah, the second filling out of the Torah, and all the ordinals also, it comes to 3,255, which is 6 times 651. So the Torah, the true Torah, the mind of God, empowers us to wrestle the falsehood of these false gods. Bearing in mind as well, it's also 15 times 217, and 217 as is Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons, because he was a son in his old age. There's some incredible numbers here, so that's 217, so it's connected up to here. The revelation of Joseph is significant, because that's the channel between heaven and earth. The name of Yod-Heh, where we cannot reach earth without that channel, fully revealed, fully circumcised, the two circumcisions of it, outer skin, inner skin, the outer all of Esav that we find within Christianity, and the inner all that still remains within Islam. Circumcise them all. Bring us to a true revelation of the Mashiach instead of the snake, empowering the snake and fantasy and fiction. So what is the true Mashiach then? You see this number here? Moshe, the square ordinal of Moshe is 635. So 2 times 635 is 1270. This is 5 times 127. 127 is also this filling out, the ordinal of this filling out of Yeshua. So we know here we've got Yisrael, which is Moshe, Tiferet, he reincarnated, and Yosef, which is Yesod. Okay, which is represented by Mashiach ben Yosef. 127, they need to be united together. This is the name as revealed within the letter of the Torah. This is the name revealed above the letter of the Torah, the much more merciful levels of the Torah, much more merciful levels of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. In the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, I cut them down. So the regular and order come to 651. Cut who down? Cut this down. Literally cut this farce down. This farce and all these gods of Edom, cut them down. The only power we've truly got is the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. Where do we find the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh? It's revealed through these two, through the Mashiach, Moshe and Yeshua, that represent Tiferet and Yesod. That's the light. That is Israel. That is the soul that needs to be channeled down into the kingdom, which is represented by the body or the vessel or the nations or Shalom. Enod Milvador, there is nothing beside him. 217. You've got to reach that level of consciousness where you're aware there's nothing beside him. You see, even these false gods that we've got to fight, that's part of our destiny to fight them. So we know there is only Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. What is this before us? It's nothing. It's nothing. You see, you got to go back to the root of what we see on the outside. You see, the lies and the delusion, they don't stand up to the truth of his name. Once we start to ridicule the dumb teachings we've adopted that create a dumb concept of God, who we then worship, who then is manifest either out with or within, and either committing all kinds of atrocities against our fellow man, you got to know that is not Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. When you got the truth about the name Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, these are, you can recognise them instantly for what they are. Lies, fantasy, fiction. There is only Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, nothing else beside him. You know, we got to know this in our mind very clearly. A fascinating thing happened in the Holocaust. Many people lost their faith in God. And go even look at the beginning of the state of Israel, the Zionistic foundation of Israel. It was all based on secularism. Do you know why? Because after the Holocaust, these Jewish people figured out, you see this God that we've been worshipping? This somehow brought us to this place to confront the likes of Hitler, Ymach Shmo Zikro. We're not worshipping this God anymore. They recognise some truth in that. They recognise some truth. You know, any God that would subject you to that is not a God worth worshipping. But where could they go from there? Some people went into Christianity. You're going from the fat to the frying pan. Because Christianity is no different from the God that's created within Rabbinical Judaism, the God that's created within Islam at this time. There's a potential to create this phenomena that's like a Nazi commandor, because that's the God that we worship. See, but a lot of the Jewish people turned away from that God because they realised there was something. It just didn't add up. You know, it just didn't add up. We've got to realise that ourselves. We've got to fight against the God we've inherited through the lies we've inherited. We've got to start to recognise the teachings are false and reject them. We've got to reject this God. We want only Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. We've got to plead Edom beg. Well, most of us are ignorant because we think we know Yod-Heh Wah-Weh. We might not know him enough. We might not know him enough. And we might be creating forces in this world we don't want to confront. As a consequence, there's only Yod-Heh Wah-Weh. We have to seek so far deep down within us to find that truth. To find that truth. To empower Yaakov, our soul, against this force that we all confront in many, many different ways. God forbid. Then we've got this concept here. Oh, just wait a minute. There's the new month, Chodesh, and then there's the concept of the month. If we take the square ordinal of them both, 521 and 564, add them together, they come to 1085, which is 5 times 217. So we do see a link there. This is a big problem, actually. There's a mystery involved with this. What's the mystery? Edom believes in solar calendars. Okay, there's a massive movement at this time within Torah-keeping Christians that believe in a purely solar calendar. The Edomites. They're essentially Edomites. We know that because only Edomites follow a purely solar calendar. Yishmaelites, the clipper of Yishmael, follows a purely lunar calendar. The Hebrews follow a solar lunar calendar. That's the month is determined by the moon, the year is determined by the cycle of the sun, hence the barley harvest. Okay, at this time, because of the forces of Edom and all the forces of exile, it's not possible to keep the true biblical calendar. So we've got an adopted Babylonian calendar, but that was commissioned via the Sanhedrin at the time that had the authority to be able to do that. So because the Sanhedrin had got biblical Torah-based authority, then when they made a decision as radical as what they made to try and keep the calendar as best as what they could, facing all the evil that they had to face of exile, they had the authority to do that. Until Mashiach comes, there's no authority to change that. But you see these Christians come along, think they know better, and just read these Dead Sea Scrolls that tell them, oh, well, they don't follow the Torah of Moshe. See, it's the Torah of Moshe. They follow the book of Enoch and the book of Jubilees. That's not the Torah. The Torah is very specific. It's a solar lunar calendar. So you see Edomites, it's coming in a very hidden way. See all these people, and they bang on about it without end. They bang on about this solar calendar. When did Tish B'Av happen? Go back to Hanukkah, when Yaakov is most empowered. Zot Hanukkah, at the time of Hanukkah, when he was managed to overwhelm the Greek forces and get rid of that statue of Zeus. It was Hanukkah, the height of darkness in the year. When did Tisha B'Av happen? The height of summer. Okay, when the Edomite forces have power at this time. Why? Because they've got within them the bones of Yosef, the concept of the sun, the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, so it's all secret, it's all hidden. We've got to start to see what's happening in this world. Enod Milvador, by the way, is 82 ordinal, which is Mashiach ben David, the ordinal of Mashiach ben David. Yereach, as we can see here, is linked to that concept. Yereach, King David, is linked to the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. To the concept of the moon. We want to attach to Mashiach ben Yosef, the both Mashiachim, the sun and the moon. It's not the actual sun and the moon, they just represent massive spiritual concepts and phenomena. The Mashiachim, the two Messiahs. If we add them together, then see how it's connected. It's got to be very aware, because these people that are pushing for solar calendars to try and lure away the children of Israel to this false doctrine, and how do they do it? Well, we're so special. We're so special. Come and sit at our table and have your roast dinner, and Nazi Commandant can come and pat us, you know, because we're in his household. They try and lure you off. It's all cult mentalities do that, by the way. It's all your favourite, you're chosen, you're elite, you're special. The devil has got you in his own nest then. You know, you don't need to believe rubbish like that. You just stick to what you know, the Torah. You don't need to be any more special than that. You don't need to be any more elite than that. You know, we're here to serve Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, whether we are of the house of Israel, of the house of Yosef, of the house of Yehuda, of the house of Esau. We are all equally necessary. We have got different jobs, but we are all equal in terms of necessity in fulfilling the plan and the will of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. And one without the other is nothing. We've got to be everything. We've got to be complete. Bekol, mekol, kol. Everything. We've got to include everything. One opposite the other. Esav opposite Yaakov. Light opposite dark. Israel opposite the nations. The male opposite the female. Evil opposite good. Okay, chaos and shalom. It goes on and on. We're living in a world where there's equal evil and good at all times to maintain free choice. Okay, we have got to turn from evil and choose good. We've got to choose life. We've got to choose life. It's not always easy because you know what? Our ego gets fueled up and it chooses the things that lead to death. It's as simple as that. We've got to make better choices. It's not easy. It's very confusing times that we are living in. Joshua, or Yeshua, spelled with a H, 528, 123. Kate's Shem Lechoshek, he sets an end to darkness. That's the exile of darkness. That comes to, those two added to come 651. So there's a relation there. Minister of the world. Who is the minister of the world? Well, that's Metatron. That gets dressed up like a version of God that represents the Nazi Commandant version of God. And we believe in it. We learned after, we warned about this Saha Alam, the Prince of the World, by Yeshua himself. We warned in the Talmud not to replace me, talking about Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, with him. That's in the Talmudic teachings when it comes to the word obey him, talking about the ministering angel, or the angel that guides you. I've talked about this a lot. We're not to replace the truth of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh with this version of with the Prince of the World, or the angel that guides us in exile. And it's the power of the Mashiach that is able to overthrow that. Do you know why? Because Moshe said, no, if you don't go with us, don't bother. We don't want this minister of the world. That's also pointed out in the Talmud. We've got to reject Metatron and his version of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh that he fuels our imagination with. 93, by the way, is the Mispar Gadol of Mashiach ben David. Okay, so it's normally 81, but if you take the nun as the Mispar Gadol for the nun, the ordinal of the nun, it goes from 14 to 25, so you add 11 on. 82 plus 11 is 93. So that's also Mashiach ben David. He is the power that helps us overcome the delusion. Your testimonies are faithful. So that's the testimonies of Mashiach, the testimonies of Moshe, the testimonies of Yeshua. It is so hot here, it's unbelievable. Just take some of my juice. $651. Okay. 76 is the ordinal of Bereshith, I do believe, so 10 times Bereshith. In the beginning, the end is wedged in the beginning. We're talking about the faithful testimonies, not the testimonies guarded up in the foreskin of Esav that ignite our ego. You see, the true testimonies that bring us to humility. They bring us to compassion for humanity, because we start to see what Yodeh-Wahweh desires and wills for all humanity. They bring us to acts of kindness. They bring us to emulate his name, not forsake it. These are what the true testament is. If they do not get you on board with the plan of Yodeh-Wahweh, it's not a true testimony. It's not faithful. It won't endure. It will be destroyed. And then word of truth filled. So, davar emeth. We need a word of truth. We need the truth regarding the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. We need that truth given over to Yaakov, our soul. Give truth to Yaakov. Titain emeth li Yaakov. That's what powers up Yaakov to overcome these delusions, these fantasies, these fictions. 207 is light. 216 is 10 times Gevurah. This is attaching to the aspect of the forefathers. It's Yitzchak. We've talked about this. Bikol, Mekol, Kol. This is how we gain supremacy over the delusion. The truth gains supremacy over the delusion. Got to be disciplined in this. We are tempted by our imagination. It never ceases to be ignited in this world. Everywhere we look, there's something inflaming our imagination, turning us away from Yodeh-Wahweh. We have to discipline ourselves to stay centered and focused on the name of Yodeh-Wahweh, nothing else beside him. It is difficult. It's difficult. Because you know what happens. You know what happens. The truth the light dresses up as the truth. And when we fall for it, we're like fish with going after the bait. We get hooked and then with somebody's dinner. We think we're getting fed. We think we've got something tasty coming our way. We go after it with a lot of enthusiasm. Esav's very enthusiastic. Then we chomp down on somebody's hook, and there we go. You're getting your cheek ripped in pieces and you're somebody's dinner. Somebody on the other side's dinner. We've got to discipline ourselves. We've got to make sure we're aware what is real here. Is that really a fish or just some crazy lure that is seducing me seducing me in some way, tempting me in some way? And it's just not what it makes itself out to be. We all fall prey. We need the truth, and sometimes the truth is very humbling to accept. Sometimes it's very humbling to accept, and we don't always want to accept it. Because sometimes it means, you're not going to have that lust satisfied. You see, that desire, however real and alive it is in you, it's not going to be satisfied. You see that what you're craving, that hole you're trying to fill, you're not going to fill it that way. It's not always easy to accept. And we all have faced those things. We've all had hopes and dreams and aspirations that have come to very little. And we've put a lot of energy and effort into pursuing them. And it's vanity and emptiness. And we've got to learn sometimes the hard way. We need a word of truth, and sometimes a word of truth is just being more truthful and realistic. What really does Yodeh-Wahweh want for your life? Pursue that and give up with your unrealistic expectations. It's really not hard. It's really very hard. We are seduced in this world. We all have wants, we all have desires, we all have hopes, we all have dreams that we want to see fulfilled. And we're all tempted as a consequence of it, including believing rubbish about false gods. We're weak, the flesh is weak. And, it's actually very powerful. When it comes to wanting something, but it's not always satisfied in the way that we hoped, and we sometimes have to be humbled by that reality and just simply accept what is truly good for us is not to fulfill the fantasy fiction version of reality. It's to simply serve Yod Heh with love and joy. Whatever comes our way as a consequence of that, take that. Don't take the bait. You know, and it's not easy. It's not easy. Life is hard for us all. Right, so this is incredible. Moshe and Yeshua filled out to the first filling of all the different levels. So this is Moshe and Yeshua for Malkuth, Moshe and Yeshua for Yetzirah, Moshe and Yeshua for Bria, Moshe and Yeshua for Atziluth. Okay? And this is just the regulars. We add the regular for both up, it comes to 3,906, which is 6 times 351 and 18 times 217. So this is a unity that we've got to wrestle in order to bring unity between Moshe and Yeshua, between the house of Yehuda and the house of Yosef, between the revelation of the Torah within the letter of the Torah and the revelation of the Torah out with the letter of the Torah, i.e. in the last 2,000 years of Edomite exile. That's Torah. That's Torah. That's Yod Heh fulfilling his Torah perfectly. We've got to unite that reality together in all its details, even the gory bits that we would want to hide from. You know, sometimes in there's the greatest revelation. You know, the fact that it was Jewish people with that manipulated and corrupted the New Testament texts. Go have a look. Find out what the truth is. The truth will reveal that through that evil of man, Yod Heh was fulfilling his Torah perfectly. It had to be so. We had to descend into Esau in order to overcome him from the inside. Okay? All things have simply been Yod Heh fulfilling his Torah. The good, the bad and the ugly, as it looks to us. Man doing his schemes. Inside all that is God doing his schemes, and his schemes are very good for all of us. Okay? And with that I will say Shalom. Please subscribe and share.